and melt some faces! Yeah! Go get ready.
Well, what do you think?
It's wonderful.
Real world isn't what I thought it was.
It never is. And isn't that marvelous?
Who are you?
You walk into a movie expecting one thing, a comedy to relax, a light romance, a harmless family film. And then something shifts. The jokes stop landing the same way. The music feels heavier, your throat tightens, and you're not entirely sure why. Because without warning, the movie hits you somewhere personal. These films didn't trick audiences, they disarmed them. They dressed grief in humor, hid heartbreak inside genre tropes, and waited until viewers felt safe before pulling the rug out. What starts playful turns painfully honest. What looks simple reveals emotional depth, and what you thought was escapism ends up confronting things you didn't plan to feel that day. These are the movies that deliver a gut punch not through shock, but through truth. You weren't prepared, and that's exactly why they stayed with you. Let's start breaking them down. Number 20 to Little Miss Sunshine. At first glance, Little Miss Sunshine looks like a quirky indie road trip comedy. A dysfunctional family, a broken yellow van, and a beauty pageant premise all signal awkward laughs and offbeat humor. And yes, those laughs are there, but they're only the surface. Beneath the jokes sits a surprisingly heavy emotional core. Every member of the Hoover family is quietly unraveling. A father obsessed with winning, a mother barely holding things together, a suicidal uncle, a teenage son who's taken a vow of silence, and a little girl trying to understand her place in a world that judges her relentlessly. The film's gut punch comes not from tragedy alone, but from recognition. These people aren't exaggerated caricatures, they are painfully real. Failure, disappointment, grief, and fear of being a loser hang over every scene. By the time Olive steps on stage for the pageant, the movie has transformed. What should be a humiliating moment becomes a radical act of love. The family support is messy, loud, and imperfect, but unconditional. You walk in expecting a comedy, but unconditional. You walk out thinking about acceptance, failure, and what it really means to win. Number 19 to Love and Basketball. Love and Basketball doesn't use basketball as a backdrop, it uses it as a language. Every emotion, every conflict, every fracture in the relationship between Monica and Quincy is filtered through the game. From childhood to adulthood, their bond grows alongside their ambition. Wins bring them together, losses tear them apart, and the pressure to succeed, especially for Monica, never lets up. Talent doesn't guarantee respect. Love doesn't guarantee respect. Love doesn't guarantee equality. What makes the film hit harder than expected is its refusal to soften reality. Monica's skill is constantly questioned. Quincy's confidence masks deep insecurity. Their love is genuine, but timing, ego, and expectation keep pulling them apart. There's no fantasy version of romance here. No promise that love conquers all. Instead, the movie understands that ambition can bruise relationships, and that loving someone doesn't mean you're ready for them. By the end, the emotional payoff doesn't come from victory. It comes from honesty. The film delivers a rare kind of ending. Not perfect, not tragic, just real. You expect romance. What you get is emotional truth. Number 18, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. On the surface, this is a classic holiday comedy. Steve Martin plays a stressed executive desperate to get home for Thanksgiving. John Candy plays the talkative, intrusive stranger who keeps ruining those plans. The setup promises chaos, slapstick, and frustration, and it delivers until it doesn't. Slowly, beneath the jokes and escalating disasters, something sadder begins to surface. John Candy's character isn't just annoying, he's lonely, desperately so. His endless talking, forced optimism, and lack of boundaries start to feel less comedic and more like survival mechanisms. Then comes the reveal, quiet, devastating, and completely unprepared for. Suddenly, the laughter feels different. Scenes you brushed off earlier take on new meaning. The movie stops being about inconvenience and becomes about grief, isolation, and the human need for connection. What makes the gut punch so effective is restraint. The film doesn't beg for tears, it simply lets truth land. You expect a holiday laugh, you get a reminder of how invisible loneliness can be. Number 17 to Sister Act 2. Back in the habit, Sister Act 2 was marketed as a loud, upbeat sequel aimed at teens. Big musical numbers, bright energy, easy fun. Even its box office performance suggested it was disposable entertainment. But the emotional weight sneaks up quietly. Beneath the humor is a sincere story about mentorship, belief, and finding your voice when the world expects you to fail. Whoopi Goldberg's character isn't just teaching music, she's teaching self-worth. The classroom scenes especially carry unexpected gravity. These students aren't just struggling academically, they're battling fear, invisibility, and the expectation that they won't amount to much. Music becomes more than performance, it becomes identity and escape. It lets sincerity do the work, and that sincerity hits harder than expected. You come for the songs, You stay for the message. By the end, what seemed like a lightweight sequel reveals itself as a heartfelt reminder that sometimes, one person believing in you is enough to change everything. Number 16 to The Last of the Mohicans. At first glance, The Last of the Mohicans looks like a standard 90s historical epic. Battles, chases, sweeping landscapes, a rugged hero in the middle of war, but beneath the spectacle lies a tragedy. Set during the French and Indian War, the film slowly shifts focus from action to loss, of people, of culture, of entire ways of life. Violence isn't thrilling here, it's inevitable. Love exists, but only briefly. Survival comes at unbearable cost. Director Michael Mann lets silence, faces, and music carry emotion. The score doesn't just accompany scenes, it mourns them. By the final act, the film abandons adventure entirely and becomes devastatingly intimate. What hits hardest isn't what's lost in battle, but what's lost to history. Traditions erased, future stolen, identity fading under colonial conflict. You expect an action epic. You get a meditation on extinction, love, and irreversible change, and it lingers long after the final scene. Number 15 to Meet the Robinsons. Meet the Robinsons looks like classic Disney chaos. Time machines, rapid-fire jokes, and brightly colored sci-fi antics. It moves so fast that you barely have time to think, which is exactly why its emotional turn lands so hard. At the center of the story is Louis, an orphan terrified of one quiet idea, that no one will ever choose him. The humor keeps things light, but his fear never leaves. Every invention, every failure, every joke is driven by that loneliness. What makes the film unexpectedly heavy is how honestly it treats failure. Louis doesn't succeed because he's special. He succeeds because he keeps failing and keeps going. The movie reframes mistakes, not as embarrassment, but as proof of effort. Then comes the emotional pivot. The future Louis imagines isn't guaranteed. Belonging isn't destiny. It's something you build. Found family replaces biological certainty, and resilience becomes the real superpower. You expect noise and laughs. You get a story about rejection, hope, and choosing to move forward anyway. Number 14 to Big begins as pure wish fulfillment. A kid becomes an adult overnight. Freedom, money, independence. Every childhood fantasy wrapped in a comedy premise. Then adulthood shows up. Josh may have the body of a grown man, but he's emotionally unprepared for the loneliness, confusion, and displacement that come with it. The job is isolating. Relationships feel wrong. Childhood slips away faster than he can process. The movie's emotional gut punch comes from what it quietly says about growing up. That maturity isn't a reward, it's a loss. Responsibility replaces wonder. Simplicity disappears. By the time Josh is forced to choose between staying an adult or returning to childhood, the fantasy has collapsed. The choice isn't exciting, it's heartbreaking. You expect laughs about being grown up. You leave thinking about how fast innocence disappears and how irreversible that change really is. Number 13 to The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense is famous for its twist, but that's not what hurts the most. What lingers is loneliness. Cole isn't just a child who sees ghosts. He's a child nobody believes. He carries unbearable fear in silence, isolated by something he can tell or explain. His suffering isn't loud, it's quiet, internal, and constant. Every scene is soaked in grief, broken families, missed connections, words that never come out right. Even the supernatural elements feel secondary to the emotional weight of being unseen. When the twist finally lands, it doesn't shock, it clarifies. Suddenly, regret becomes visible everywhere, not just for one character, but for everyone. You expect a scary movie. You get a meditation on grief, communication, and how much pain hides in plain sight. Number 12, Dog. Marketed as a feel-good road trip with a difficult dog, Dog slowly reveals itself as something much heavier. Channing Tatum's character isn't just gruff, he's broken. Ordered to escort a fallen soldier's military dog to a funeral, he's forced to confront trauma he's never processed. The dog, Lulu, carries her own scars from war. The humor is there, but it's fragile. Beneath it sits grief, anger, and survivor's guilt. Neither character knows how to heal, only how to endure. What makes the film hit unexpectedly hard is its rejection of toughness. Healing doesn't come from powering through, it comes from vulnerability. You expect a light comedy. You get an honest look at the cost of service and the pain left behind. Number 11 to League of Their Own. Most people remember this movie for its jokes and charm, the famous line, the baseball energy, the underdog spirit, but underneath is something bittersweet. These women are living their dream, and they know it won't last. Their success exists in the shadow of war and social limitation. Talent doesn't protect them from being replaced or forgotten. The emotional anchor is the strained relationship between sisters Dottie and Kit. Their conflict isn't exaggerated, it's painfully real. Love mixed with resentment, support tangled with rivalry. By the end, victory feels temporary. The joy is real, but fleeting. You expect inspiration. You leave mourning unrealized potential, and moments history never fully honored. Number 10 to Everything Everywhere All at Once. At first, this movie feels like pure overload. Multiverses colliding, absurd humor, rapid editing, and genre chaos hit you all at once. It almost dares you to keep up. The expectation is clear. This is going to be a clever, exhausting sci-fi comedy. But that assumption doesn't last. Beneath the chaos is a deeply personal story about regret, generational trauma, and emotional disconnect. Evelyn isn't really trying to save the universe. She's trying to understand her daughter, her marriage, and the version of herself she never became. Every alternate timeline reflects a different form of disappointment. Lives that could have been meaningful but still feel empty. Success without connection, freedom without purpose. The emotional gut punch lands quietly, not with spectacle, but with kindness. The film argues that meaning isn't found in infinite possibility, it's found in choosing compassion in a meaningless world. You come for the madness. You stay for the ache of wanting your life to have mattered. Number 9 to Perks of Being a Wallflower. This looks like a gentle indie coming-of-age story. Mixed tapes, late-night drives, and quiet friendships. Nothing about it signals emotional devastation. That's the trap. Charlie isn't chasing popularity or romance. He's just trying not to disappear. He watches life instead of living it, unsure where he belongs. The film lingers in small moments, conversations, glances, silences. Slowly, the weight becomes clear. Underneath the nostalgia is a story about trauma and repression. Charlie's friendships bring warmth, but they don't erase what he's carrying. Healing isn't linear here. Joy and pain exist at the same time. When Charlie's past finally surfaces, it reframes everything. The kindness, the sadness, the detachment, all of it. You expect comfort. You get a reminder that some wounds stay quiet for years before they speak. Number 8 to Toy Story 3. Audiences walked in expecting familiarity, jokes, nostalgia, comfort. Instead, they were confronted with an ending. Toy Story 3 forces its audience, especially those who grew up with the franchise, to face a painful truth. Childhood doesn't wait. Andy is leaving for college. The toys are no longer needed. The film doesn't soften this reality. Abandonment, fear, and existential dread run through what should be playful scenes. Even moments meant to be funny feel anxious. And then comes the goodbye. It's not just about toys. It's about phases of life ending without permission. About realizing you have already let go of things you didn't mean to. You expect fun. You leave mourning your own childhood. Number 7, I Am Legend. Marketed as a survival thriller, I Am Legend appears to be about monsters, Kenshin, and apocalypse spectacle. But the real enemy is loneliness. Robert Neville isn't just fighting creatures. He's fighting isolation, guilt, and grief. His routines are less about survival and more about staying sane. Every empty street reflects his internal collapse. The film's most painful moments aren't violent. They're quiet. Loss arrives slowly, then all at once. Hope erodes in real time. You expect action. You get a portrait of depression disguised as a blockbuster. Number 6, Big Fish. This doesn't feel like a typical Tim Burton film. It's warm, colorful, and whimsical. A story built on exaggerated tales and fantasy. But that whimsy hides grief. At its core, Big Fish is about a son trying to understand his father before it's too late. The tall tales aren't lies. They're emotional truths. Ways of processing love, regret, and mortality. As myth and reality blur, the film reveals something devastating. Facts matter less than meaning. You expect charm. You leave thinking about memory, aging, and how stories help us survive loss. Number 5 to About Time. About Time was sold as a gentle romantic comedy with a quirky twist. Time travel, awkward charm, British humor, everything about it suggested warmth and whimsy. What no one warned audiences about was the emotional ambush waiting underneath. Yes, the love story is sweet. Yes, the time travel mechanics are clever, but that's not what breaks you. The real heart of the film is the relationship between a son and his father. As Tim learns to use his ability, he assumes it's meant to fix mistakes, polish awkward moments, and perfect life. Slowly, painfully, he discovers its limits. Some moments can't be repeated without cost. Some people can't be saved without losing others. The movie shifts quietly from fantasy to reality. It stops being about changing the past and becomes about accepting the present, about noticing ordinary days, about understanding that time isn't something you control. It's something you experience once. The final act doesn't rely on shock. It relies on inevitability. You expect a rom-com. You get a meditation on love, mortality, and saying goodbye. Number 4, Marley and Me. The marketing promised chaos. a lovable, out-of-control dog. Light comedy, easy laughs. What Marley and Me actually delivers is a life. Through Marley, we watch a marriage grow, a family form, careers shift, frustrations mount, and time pass quietly. The dog isn't just comic relief, he's a constant in a world that keeps changing. That's why it hurts. Marley is there for the messy parts, the uncertain parts, the moments people don't notice until they're gone. The film doesn't rush toward tragedy. It lets you live inside the routine long enough to forget what's coming. And when it arrives, it's devastating. The grief works because it's earned, because Marley wasn't just a pet, he was a witness to an entire chapter of life. You expect a family comedy. You leave grieving something that feels uncomfortably personal. Number 3, Bridesmaids. Bridesmaids was marketed as a loud, outrageous comedy, and it absolutely delivers on that promise. The jokes are fearless. The set pieces are iconic. The laughter is real. But beneath the chaos is something raw. Annie isn't just unlucky, she's unraveling. Career failure, financial stress, and the slow erosion of adult friendships leave her feeling replaced and invisible. Her jealousy isn't petty, it's desperation. Her messiness isn't a gag, it's grief. It lets her fall apart without turning her into a punchline. Female friendship isn't idealized here. It's competitive, painful, and deeply emotional. That honesty is what hits hardest. You expect laughs. You get a portrait of adulthood when nothing goes according to plan. Number 2, Click looks like a disposable Adam Sandler comedy. A magic remote. Easy jokes. Low expectations. Then it turns. Beneath the humor is a brutal message about time slipping away. Michael fast-forwards through inconvenience, conflict, and boredom, convinced he'll enjoy life later. But later never comes. He skips the moments that mattered. Family dinners, quiet conversations, his father. By the time he realizes what he's lost, it's almost over. The emotional pivot reframes everything that came before it. The jokes stop being funny. The fantasy becomes regret. You expect nonsense. You get a warning about how easy it is to miss your own life. Number 1, Train to Busan. What begins as a zombie thriller quickly becomes something far heavier. Trapped on a speeding train during an outbreak, strangers are forced to choose who they are when survival is on the line. Panic spreads. Morality fractures. At the center is a father who begins emotionally distant and self-focused. As the crisis escalates, his priorities change. Too late. The horror isn't the zombies. It's the humanity on display. Selfishness, sacrifice, love under pressure. By the end, the film stops feeling like genre entertainment. It becomes a tragedy about parenthood, regret, and what we leave behind. You expect thrills. You leave emotionally drained, in the best possible way. If this list caught you off guard emotionally, you're not alone. Drop a comment with the movie that hit you the hardest. Give the video a like if you felt that gut punch too, and subscribe for more deep dives into films that stay with you long after the credits roll.